So after discussing management ports, console cables, console ports, and memory, we are ready to start our first lab. In our first lab, we will test the following. First of all, we will start Cisco Packet Tracer. We will add one switch, we will boot it, and we'll access the console. Then we will try help commands. We will try question mark, tab, arrows, backspace, and we will test the history. We will go up and down in history to see how commands will change while we are moving up and down. After that, we will start protecting our CLI. First, we will try to protect enable mode by enable password, and as we said before, this enable password is old technique, but we will try it for testing. We will set enable password to Cisco123, and after that we will try to encrypt this password because it will be in plain text in configuration file, and the command to encrypt password is service password encryption. And after that we will try to protect enable mode by enable secret, and this is more secure way to protect enable mode. So the command is enable secret, and we will set the password to secret123. In the next step, we will protect CLI access by a password only, and the command is line console 0 login password console123. To try protecting console access by username and password, we will configure one user, user1, with the privilege level 1. As we discussed before, Cisco switches has privilege levels from 0 to 15, and we will test privilege 1, which has limited access. So the command is username user1 privilege 1 password, and password is password123, and actually privilege 1 is the default privilege, so if we didn't specify privilege as 1, it will be 1 by default. The next step is protecting console access by local username and password, and the command is line console 0 login local to enable local username and password protection. We will try to log in using user1, and we'll see what happens. Then we will configure another user, user15, with a privilege level 15. Username will be user15 and the password will be the same, password123. And after completing all these steps, we will save running configuration to startup configuration to make sure that these changes are permanent and they will not be lost if we reboot the switch. We will test two commands. One of them is long version, copy running configuration, startup configuration, and the other one, write memory, is the short version of this command that's used by network engineers usually. We are ready now to start our first lab, so please run Cisco Packet Tracer in your device and log in using the same credentials you used to log into Cisco Network Academy. When you start the software, this is the default interface. If you look here, you can see different devices that you can use in this lab. In our CCNA labs, we will use only routers and switches from network devices. We will use PCs as end devices, and we will use different links here. We can use auto links in most cases, but we may use straight cables, crossover cables, or fiber cables. So let's start by adding our first switch. We go to network devices, then switches. Once we click on switches, we can see different options here. We have limited options of switches, and in our labs we will use 2960 switches. So we drag the switch here, and once we drag it here, it will start booting. So the switch finished booting now, and we can get the user mode. As we discussed before, in user mode we will see the greater than prompt and the host name, which is the default host name in our case, switch. We know from this prompt that we are in user mode or user exec mode. Let's call it user mode for simplicity. So let's try some of the help commands. We can try to type question mark to see all options we have here. As you can see here, we have limited number of commands that can run in this mode. So let's try to go to enable mode to get privileged access into different commands. So we type enable to get the privilege mode. We can identify privilege mode by this hash after host name, and this means we are in privilege or enable mode. Let's call this mode enable mode for simplicity. So we moved from user mode to enable mode by typing enable command. The switch didn't ask for any password or any username password because we didn't configure anything yet, and by default, console access is open. Now let's see what commands we can see from this mode. Let's type question mark. If you feel that the font is small, you can increase it by going to Options, Preference, and then go to Font, CLI, and increase it from 8, for example, to 11. This may be still small. Maybe I'll increase it to 14, for example. I'll make it 16. This should make the font readable. So let's go again, question mark. And as you can see now, we have more commands than the user mode. In enable mode, which is identified by the hash here, we have more commands to run. Now keep in mind that this is simulator and not emulator, and actually we may have more commands in actual switches, but for our bucket tracer we have these commands only, which are enough for our CCNA lab. Now let's try other help commands. To monitor the switch or to read the configuration of the switch, it is common to use show commands. So if I type sh and then tab, the switch will complete the command as show for me. If I want to see what parameters or what variables I can use after show, I can type question mark after space. So show space question mark, and this will give me a list of commands or list of options I have after show. If I want to show version, which gives me information about iOS software on this switch, I can type show ver, for example, then question mark. I have only one option, which is version, so I can click tab and the switch will complete it for me. If I click enter now, I can see the version of this switch. Now how about if I type show then v? In this case I have three options: show version, show VLAN, and show VTP. So if I try to type tab in this case, this gives me nothing. So I'm trying here to type tab to see how to complete this command. I tried tab a few times and the switch was not able to complete the command because there are many options here. The switch doesn't know how to complete this command. Is it version, VLAN, or VTP? And if I try E after V, this will give the switch one option only, which is version. So show VE then tab will make it version. But if I try VL then tab, this will make it VLAN. And if I try VT then tab, this is VTP. Now the switch keeps history for commands I typed in this session. So if I try show history, this will give list for commands I typed since we started this session. So if I want to go to the previous command, which is show history, I click on up arrow. This will give me show history. If I click up again, this is show VTP. If I click up again, this is show version. If I want to go back to show VTP, I click down. This takes me to show VTP. If I click on left arrow, this will take me left. If I click on right arrow, this will take me right. If I click on backspace, this will delete the last character. I can go to the middle of the command and then click on backspace to delete one character. You need to try this by yourself to understand the meaning of each of these commands. Now let's try protecting CLI access. If you try show run, you can see that line console has no configuration and there is no enable password. So let's start by configuring enable password. We should go to configure terminal first. Then we configure enable password and I will configure it Cisco 123. It is common to use help commands when configuring switches because no one can memorize all commands, and help commands can guide you through different parameters and different options of each command. So I will configure enable password to be Cisco 123, and as you can see here, I used enable and not enable secret because I want to show you the difference between the two and how the new command enable secret overrides the old command, which is enable. Let's see how this make a difference. So I'll make exit to go back to enable mode, then disable. Now I am in user mode and I want to try to go to enable mode again. I'll type enable, and this time the switch asked me for a password. Why is that? Because I configured enable password here, which is Cisco123. Now I type the password, which is Cisco123, Cisco123, and now I am in enable password. If I want to see the running configuration to verify the changes I did, I type show run, and as you can see here, enable password is there and it is in plain text. This password is in plain text. Plain text means not encrypted, and this means anyone who has the configuration can see this password easily and can use it to access the switch. So we want to encrypt this password, and the easiest or simplest way to encrypt it is by using service encryption. So we can go back to our configuration and we go to conft. Now we are in config mode. We type service password encryption, and as you can see, I'm using the help commands like tab and question mark all the time to make sure I type the correct command without any error in syntax and with the correct parameters. So I configured service password encryption, enter, then I go back to enable mode to see running configuration. As you can see, the password is encrypted now. It is not in plain text. So this is an encrypted password, and we can tell from this number here, which is 7, that this is encrypted password. This encryption was done because we have this command, service password encryption, which encrypt all passwords in the configuration. This encryption is not strong, but it is better than having the configuration in plain text. This encryption can be cracked, so someone who has this configuration and who knows that we use level 7 encryption can easily decrypt this password if he has the required knowledge and required tools. And this is why we shouldn't use enable password, but instead of that we should use enable secret to protect enable mode. So let's see how this works. Let's go back to global configuration mode, and it is enough to type conft for the switch to understand that you want to configure terminal. From here we can configure enable secret, and I'll make it secret123. Let's go back to user mode and try to access enable mode again. Now it asks me for a password. So what password should I type here? Is it Cisco123, which is the enable password we configured, or secret123, which is enable secret configured I configured? What do you think? As we said before, enable secret overrides enable password, and that's why this is the one that should work. Let's test it in our lab. So I will try first to type Cisco123 and see how it goes. I will try now Cisco123. It did not work. I will try secret123, and this worked now. So this password will be used and it overrides enable password. Now let's look into the configuration. Show running config will show me the running configuration. Although I have two commands, this command is not effective because enable password will not take place when we have enable secret. For enable secret, as you can see, we have number 5 here and these characters. Number 5 means hash. So enable secret password is hashed by one-way hashing. This way of hashing is more secure than encryption, and it is much more difficult to crack this password using normal tools and techniques. Now let's try to protect CLI access by username and password. Now let's try to protect console access by a password only. So we try show run, and as you can see we have no configuration in line console, and line VTY 04 and 515 are used for telnet and SSH. So let's focus now on console because the same applies on the other two. We go to conft, then line console 0, password I'll make it console 123, enter. So let me try to exit and exit again, and then exit. And it didn't work. It did not ask me for a password. And why is that? It is mainly because one command is missing from the console, which is login. So we should go to conft line console 0 again and add the command login. This command enables CLI protection, and we have it by default in VTY, but it is good to make sure that this command is added to any line that you want to protect. Now let's go back and try to access the console, and as you can see it asked for a password. The password is console 123, so I have user mode. If I want to go to enable mode, it will ask for a password again, and in this case I will type secret 123 to get enable mode. Now let's try to protect console access by username and password. We need to configure username and password first. So conft, I'll say username user1 and password 123. And I need to go to line console 0, then type login local, then I exit, and login again. Now the console asks for username and password. Username is user1 and password is password123. And now if I want to go to enable mode, I type enable, then secret 123. If I want to see the configuration, show run. You can see here the user 1 has privilege 1, password encrypted by encryption 7, and he has the privilege of 1, and that's why he will start by user mode, then he needs to type enable. Privilege 1 is the least privilege. Privilege 15 is full privilege. If you want this user to get full privilege without enable password, you can configure the privilege to be 15. Let's try this now. So I'll configure another user, which is user 15. User name, user 15, privilege 15, and password is the same, which is password 123. Now I'll try to exit, and exit again. Now I will try to log in using user 15 and password 123, and as you can see I have full access now with full privilege because user 15 has the privilege of 15, as you can see in running configuration here. Now as I said before, these passwords can be decrypted. If any user gets this configuration and he has the required knowledge and tools, and that's why it is good to have user information stored in remote device. Now as we discussed before, the switch has running configuration, which is the one we are modifying here. This is stored in RAM and it will be lost during reload or rebooting of the switch. The other configuration is startup configuration and it is stored in NVRAM. So let's try to examine startup configuration. You can try show startup configuration to see the configuration that will be loaded into the switch when rebooting. And as you can see, our switch doesn't have any startup configuration. We need to save a copy of running configuration into startup configuration, and we can do this by the command copy running configuration into startup configuration. Yes. And now it is saved. So if we try now show startup configuration, we can see the full configuration with the modification we did. Saving running configuration into startup configuration can be done by shorter command, which is write mem. And this is the common command used by network engineers to save running configuration into startup configuration. That's all for this lab. I hope it was useful. Please test it by yourself and let me know if you have any comment. If you like this video and if you find it useful, please like, share, subscribe, and enable notification to receive future videos in my channel. Thank you and have a good day.